John was standing at the wine rack when two armed robbers stormed in. One of them aimed a gun at him, but John, unfazed, grabbed the barrel, lifted it to his mouth, and calmly challenged the robber to pull the trigger. The second robber instructed his partner to act, but John swiftly overpowered both of them. The film begins with John Chapman, a former U.S. Marine grappling with the weight of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Lost in thought, he drowns his sorrow in alcohol, reflecting on the friends he's lost, and plays a dangerous game of Russian roulette. His intention is to end his life, but as fate would have it, the chamber is empty, and he narrowly escapes death. The next scene unfolds in a convenience store, where John Chapman stands before the liquor shelf, reaching for a bottle in an attempt to drown his sorrows. Suddenly, two armed robbers storm in. One of them aims a handgun directly at John, but the former Marine remains unfazed. Without hesitation, he seizes the weapon, presses the barrel against his own mouth, and dares the robber to pull the trigger. Shocked by John's fearless response, the gunman hesitates while his partner urgently urges him to shoot. Drawing on his Marine instincts, John swiftly overpowers both robbers, retrieves the stolen money, and hands it back to the store owner. Yet victory in the store does nothing to silence the war within. Back home, he grapples with PTSD, his breath ragged in the still of a night, seeking solace in grueling workouts to drown out the memories. Suddenly, a knock at the door jolts him from his struggle. When he opens it, he finds Cindy, his sister. Together they sit at the dinner table, sharing a rare moment of warmth and family connection. The next day, Cindy discovers that John has been neglecting his prescribed PTSD medication. When she confronts him, he dismisses her concern with a simple, "I'm fine," openly admitting his disdain for the pills. Instead of dwelling on himself, he shifts the focus to her, asking if she's okay. Though Cindy insists everything is fine, her body language betrays her subtle hesitations and fleeting expressions revealing the unspoken insecurities and worries she tries to hide. The next day, Cindy boards a flight back to Brazil. The scene shifts to a beach where a young boy from the slums leads two police officers, one of them, Katarina, to a horrifying sight. Cindy lies battered and bloodied in the sand, barely clinging to life. Wasting no time, Katarina urgently calls for an ambulance to get her to the hospital. Meanwhile, across the distance, John receives a call from Ridley, a fellow veteran and former teammate. The news of Cindy's brutal attack ignites a storm of rage within him. John wastes no time, he's on the next flight to Brazil. Meanwhile, in the slums, Katarina is distributing soft drinks to the locals when sudden gunfire shatters the moment. She and her partner sprint toward the chaos, arriving just as Detectives Santo and Baroro take a group of suspects into custody. But the situation rapidly spirals out of control. The crowd erupts in fury, surrounding the officers, their anger boiling over. Tensions escalate as guns are drawn, turning the slum into a volatile standoff between the police and an enraged community. Santo proposes a deal: each side will choose its best fighter for a one-on-one showdown. If the police lose, they will withdraw and release the arrested suspects. But if they win, they will return until Cindy's attacker is found. The agreement sets the stage for a tense battle between Detective Carlos Barro and the slum's strongest fighter. With his superior combat skills, Barro swiftly claims victory. Before departing, Santo addresses the crowd, making one thing clear: they will be back to finish what they started. John meets with Manny and Santo, who agree to have him team up with Detective Katarina to investigate the crime scene. Later, he visits Cindy at the hospital, only to witness a suspicious moment: an Asian nurse administering an intravenous injection of an unfamiliar drug. At first he remains silent, but moments later Cindy is racked by violent seizures. Doctors rush in to stabilize her, and when John demands answers about the nurse, they confirm that no such person exists on the hospital's staff. The chilling realization sets in: someone is deliberately trying to kill Cindy. John arrives at the beach where Cindy was found and begins his investigation. As he scans the area, his eyes lock onto a young man lingering nearby, wearing a familiar necklace. Cindy's suspicion flares, and John approaches, demanding to know where he got it. Before he can get a clear answer, tensions erupt as locals intervene, escalating into a brief confrontation. Once the dust settles, the truth emerges: the young man, Kaka, isn't a thief but someone Cindy had helped while working in the slums. The necklace wasn't stolen, it was a gift, a symbol of gratitude and connection between them. John receives Cindy's diary, only to find several pages mysteriously torn out. Determined to uncover the missing pieces, he carefully rubs sandpaper over the remnants, revealing faint imprints of the lost writing. His efforts lead him to a cryptic phone number. Wasting no time, he dials the number and arranges a meeting with the man on the other end, Bruno. During their tense conversation, Bruno unveils a shocking truth. Cindy had been secretly investigating the disappearances of sex workers in the slums, using the trust and connections she had built while working there. Cindy had set up a meeting with someone who held crucial information about the case. Wanting to document the encounter, she enlisted Bruno, a photographer she had worked with before, to capture the moment from a distance. Bruno admitted that while he had given Cindy the original photos, he secretly kept copies for his own protection. However, John had managed to steal them. As Bruno stepped into his car, a sudden explosion ripped through the air, sending shockwaves through the street and injuring John nearby. Dazed but alert, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the chaos, an Asian woman who bore an uncanny resemblance to the mysterious nurse. She sped away in a car, with John immediately giving chase. However, before he could catch up, he was ambushed by a group of armed assailants. Outnumbered but relentless, John fought back with lethal precision, forcing the attackers to retreat. Shaken but undeterred, he regrouped with Manny to examine the photos he had managed to secure. As they scrutinized the images, a chilling realization took shape: the Yakuza might be deeply entangled in the case. They traced their next lead to a nightclub with known ties to the Yakuza, seeking the man captured in the photos, the one caught making a deal with Cindy. Determined to get answers, John entered the club and confronted him directly. The man, DJ Lima, reluctantly admitted to being a smuggler. He revealed that Cindy had stumbled upon him during a transaction and had pressed him for information, unknowingly putting herself in danger. Fortunately for Cindy, Lima's client had also been watching the exchange and was likely the one responsible for her attack. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Lima reluctantly gave John a lead on the client's whereabouts. Wasting no time, John and Manny set out to investigate further. Meanwhile, Santo unleashed a ruthless raid on the slums, targeting wanted criminals. His team of assassins executed a merciless massacre, gunning down victims with chilling indifference, leaving devastation in their wake. Following Lima's directions, John arrived at a lavish mansion, its opulence a stark contrast to the poverty of the slums. The extravagant display of wealth was overwhelming, and among the well-dressed elites, he recognized figures of considerable influence. Then, his eyes locked onto a familiar face, the powerful Asian woman he had seen before. Before he could act, a guard approached and silently guided him to a back balcony. From there, John watched as a black truck pulled up, its cargo sending a chill down his spine. Several young girls ushered into the mansion under the cover of darkness. Among the girls, John was shocked to recognize Maria, Kaka's sister. Immediately after, he was attacked by a guard. However, with his Marine training, John quickly subdued the attacker. Meanwhile, in the slums, a police officer spotted a Japanese man preparing to board a black truck. Suspicious, he ordered the man to stop and immediately called for backup from his teammates. Santo and Barroso arrived just as the police were assessing the situation. Without warning, Santo raised his gun and executed the young officer with a single shot to the head, leaving everyone frozen in shock. In that brutal moment, the truth unraveled. Santo and Barroso were not upholding the law, they were deeply entangled with the powerful Japanese woman who had tried to kill Cindy. The horrifying reality set in. Santo's raid on the slums had never been about eliminating criminals. Instead, it was a ruthless cover-up, wiping out anyone who might have given Cindy the truth about their underground sex trafficking operation. The Yakuza had enlisted Santo to erase any loose ends that could jeopardize their operations. As a reward for his loyalty, the enigmatic Japanese woman assured him that his payment would be waiting at the dock. Meanwhile, back at the villa, John found himself in a relentless chase, pursued by guards after uncovering the hidden location where the kidnapped victims were being held. At the same time, the ruthless mastermind, Hiromoto, issued a chilling order. He instructed the Yakuza woman to finish the job at the hospital and eliminate Cindy once and for all. At the same moment, Hiromoto ruthlessly interrogated Lima, his voice void of emotion, before silencing him permanently with a swift slash of his sword. With the deed done, he shifted his attention to Santo and Barroso, informing them that John had become a serious threat to their operation. Without hesitation, the two corrupt detectives vowed to eliminate him. Meanwhile, John found himself cornered by the guards inside the brothel. Outnumbered but unfazed, he relied on his razor-sharp instincts and combat expertise, swiftly turning the tide and taking them down with brutal efficiency. Santo and Baroro arrived swiftly, and John attempted to explain the situation. However, before he could get through to them, Santo prepared to eliminate him. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, Katarina and her team stormed in, halting his treacherous move. Seizing the moment, John led the group to the location where the kidnapped children were being held. To his shock, the room was completely empty. Someone had already cleared it out. Santo, unfazed, turned to John with a menacing glare and demanded that he hand over the sensitive shipping documents in his possession. Unaware of Santo's ties to the Yakuza, John initially agreed to cooperate. However, as he left the hotel to complete the exchange, a nagging suspicion took hold. Something wasn't right. Piecing things together, he realized a deeper conspiracy was at play, with Santo at its center. Determined to uncover the truth, John discreetly followed the detective to the docks. Meanwhile, a Yakuza assassin closed in on Cindy at the hospital, ready to end her life. But before the killer could strike, Officer Katarina arrived just in time, thwarting the attack and saving Cindy. At the docks, John arrived to a chilling sight. Santo, Baroro, and Haramoto stood among a group of mercenaries, overseeing the preparation of shipments bound for Japan. John immediately contacted Manny Ridley, updating him on the situation and requesting backup. However, he warned the police not to use their radios, suspecting that Santo might be a double agent and could intercept their communication. Determined to take action, John infiltrated the warehouse, where he was met by a group of thugs. With relentless precision and sheer combat prowess, he swiftly overpowered them, taking each one down with calculated force. Just as the dust settled, Santo and Baroro emerged, launching a surprise attack. A brutal fight ensued, but John gained the upper hand, ultimately pinning Santo beneath a pile of heavy crates, leaving him incapacitated and unable to retaliate. John then came face to face with Baroro, a formidable and ruthless adversary. The fight was brutal, each strike landing with deadly intent as the detective and the former Marine clashed in a relentless battle. Baroro's sheer athleticism and raw power made him a dangerous opponent, but John's unwavering determination and combat expertise ultimately allowed him to gain the upper hand, bringing Baroro down. Just as John caught his breath, Santo suddenly broke free and lunged at him in a desperate attack. However, John, ever the seasoned warrior, was ready. With swift precision and decisive force, he neutralized Santo once and for all. As both Baroro and Santo staggered to their feet, John remained focused on them, unaware of the looming danger behind him. At the last second, he sensed Haramoto's presence and narrowly dodged a deadly sword strike. Reacting with lightning speed, he countered with a powerful strike and charged at all three opponents. A brutal battle erupted, with John facing relentless attacks from all sides. Outnumbered and cornered, he fought fiercely, his every move calculated for survival. With a devastating blow, he shattered Santo's ribs, sending him reeling. At the same time, he skillfully turned Baroro's own knife against him, driving the blade into his leg and throwing him off balance. John then confronted Haramoto in a brutal showdown. Armed with 2 ceramic rods, he utilized his Marine Corps training to counter the Yakuza boss, who wielded his sword with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Their clash was intense, each strike swift and deadly. Though Haramoto managed to land a hit, John quickly regained control, overwhelming his opponent and forcing him to his knees. Just as victory seemed within reach, Haramoto suddenly drew a gun and fired. With a cold sneer, he taunted John, saying that his sister had put up a better fight. The cruel remark ignited a fury within John, fueling his determination to end the battle once and for all. Consumed by rage, John unleashed a relentless barrage of lightning-fast strikes on Haramoto. The Yakuza boss struggled to rise, but John gave him no chance, mercilessly firing multiple shots, until Haramoto finally collapsed, lifeless. As the dust settled, Santo, gravely wounded, gasped out a final revelation. He swore he had no part in the attack that nearly killed Cindy. With trembling hands, he passed John a key, a vital piece of evidence that could expose the entire operation. In his last moments, Santo made one final request: a gun to end his own life. With the support of the Marines, John successfully rescued the kidnapped victims and ensured their safe return. When the police arrived at the scene, they found Cindy awake and recovering, though her head injury remained severe and would take years to fully heal. Sometime later, at a quiet coffee shop, Ridley proposed an opportunity joining the Department of State as a special agent. Recognizing that this position would not only give him purpose, but also ensure the government's support for his sister's care, John accepted without hesitation. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on notifications and leave a like to support the channel.